We're able to create new materials and new species on this planet that only nature can do. Science has not been able to do that. Nature can do that. So this is a sign you're dealing with something at a higher level beyond whatever mankind has been able to accomplish and do. And we're able to do things like, make drug-resistant bacteria finally respond to drugs. We've seen that this energy, this consciousness, it has inherent intelligence, meaning you're not the one doing the creating per se, but rather this consciousness is working on your behalf. Because what we've seen when we're doing this with, let's say, we did an experiment on cancer cells at the California Pacific Medical Research Institute, right, with Dr. Garrett Yunt. And what we did is basically in a petri dish, there was a mixed sample of both cancer cells and non-cancerous cells. There's no treatment that is able to properly and effectively distinguish the nature between the two, kill one and give life to the other. This blessing, this consciousness can identify and distinguish between the two of them. It can kill cancer cells while at the same time promoting the viability and health of the non-cancerous cells.
I'm Rai, your Kodega, here to lead you through the shadows of the unknown. My journeys have carried me across hidden corners of the world to places steeped in wonder, whispers, and unanswered questions. Walk with me as we uncover ancient civilizations, unravel unexplained phenomena, and chase the legends that refuse to die. Welcome to Kodega's Codex of Curiosities. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Kodega's Codex of Curiosities. If you're new here, well, welcome. And if you're returning guest, well, welcome as well. And like I said, if you're new here, my name is Rai, the Kodega. And of course, if you're not new here, if you're not new here, oh my gosh, stumbling all over my words, you already know that. What is a Kodega? Well, Kodega is a guide who takes you on a journey. He's showing you the way. He's showing you safety. He's giving you safety. He's protecting you along the way. And along the way, he's telling you some stories, some information that maybe you've not heard. All right. And that's like tonight. So now what if everything we've been taught about reality perhaps is upside down? What if consciousness isn't something happening inside your brain, but the very thing reality is happening inside of? Today, we're sitting down with Dahryn Trivedi to explore a question that sits right on the edge of science, spirituality, and human potential. What is consciousness? Is there a way to work with that? And what happens if it's fundamental? Now, with that, we're going to be working on possibly enriching ourselves, enlivening ourselves, creating, receiving blessings as well, which I think is very, very important in this life. Now, we are in a period right now in the life that we're living where everything is so dark, everything is so difficult, and everybody is having a difficult and dark time. But perhaps there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe we just need that extra push or that extra help to get us there and to elevate us and to bring us up. And without further ado, let me not blabber on anymore. Let's bring Dahryn to the show. Dahryn, thank you for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here with you. That was a great introduction. I don't even need to talk anymore. You did it.
Well, I hope I did. I did some research and I was like, okay, because I always am a fan of consciousness and of quantum reality as well. And I think it's very important to elevate our well-being and our consciousness. It's extremely important, especially in this day and age where as soon as we turn on that TV, it's just filled with negativity. And, we open the door and there's negativity all outside, people honking their horns and screaming and yelling. And it just thinks that things have been escalating and escalating. And it's difficult to find that edge or that boost that we need to stay positive. And I keep using positive and negative, but it's just to continue forward, to keep being productive and I don't want to say positive again, but I'm going to say it, to be positive. It's very important. So before I ramble on anymore, Dahryn, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe where they can find you as well?
Absolutely. So my name is Dahryn Trivedi. Obviously, I'm a part of a nonprofit organization called Divine Connection International. And basically, it is a solutions-based nonprofit where we're not only scientifically proving that consciousness is the foundation of our existence. It's the fundamental principle of all of life. It is, what programs and governs our entire totality, our existence. It's what tells us, the lives that we will lead, the lives, our quality of life, our health, our well-being, our peace, our mental clarity, the direction, our relationships, our finances, all of those things. It actually controls more than we realize. It's not a state of mind. It's more than that. And that's what we'll get into today. But on top of that, we have over 6,000 science studies establishing this as a foundational reality, a scientific reality. But on top of that, we're offering real practical solutions for people, so that they can actually experience consciousness, evolve in consciousness, and, reap the benefits of that. And so we're actually, as part of your audience and what they get to receive from us is we have a special landing page for anybody who wants to visit and try it out for the first time, divineconnection.org/Codega. So they can, receive a huge discount on what we have to offer. And, it's unique just for your audience. So
I thank you for that. I think that's amazing. And like you said, when consciousness is, and I've had a dream. So I'm quite the dreamer. I have some very prophetic or interesting dreams. And if we're saying like consciousness is the creation, is the creator, in essence, we could be, and it doesn't change anything, I will say this, but we could be living in a matrix and we are the creators of our life, of our world. And in my dream, I was talking about that I had this dream. I had a dream where I told everybody that, no, this is a dream. This is kind of a matrix. It's not real to you. And they were very upset. They're like, well, then who gets to create this? Who gets to create this reality? And I said, the dreamer does. So that means it's us. We are the creators. We are that, which then kind of, and I didn't want to bring this up right away because this is one of my favorite things, is the double slit experiment, where awareness is creation. Like awareness is creates this reality. Like we cause things to change and to act differently by just observing, which is fantastic.
Yeah. That's definitely what we've found through all of our extensive scientific research is that your level of consciousness or the amount of consciousness you have, whether you want to refer to it as more consciousness or levels of consciousness, you can say higher levels of consciousness or more consciousness determines your reality. And we've seen that across everything, which is why we say consciousness is universal. It's fundamental, right? Max Planck, right? He's a, Nobel Prize winner, quantum physicist and, physicist in general, where he came with this idea that consciousness is fundamental and matter is derivative of consciousness. So matter comes second. It's a byproduct. And science, unfortunately, has it the other way around. And that's where all of the problems, all of our modern day problems you see, the days, where all of us are struggling and suffering with our mental health, our physical health, the food we eat, the quality of life that all of us are living, right? We're seeing for the first time in first world countries, the life expectancy go down. We're seeing huge problems, especially, women and their, menstrual health and their hormones. We're seeing just mental health crises rampant. We're seeing things that science has found it as very much incapable of being able to properly address at the most fundamental level. And when you see these problems so widespread and really creeping into, infiltrating nearly every system of life that we have, whether it's our health, our food, right, our society, our culture, all of these things, you have to understand that there must be a very fundamental piece that we are missing, that we have wrong, if it's so widespread and infiltrates everything. And this, I truly believe, creeps into the very fundamental understanding of what science has shaped for us in our modern world. We're taught and nurtured that our modern world is a very physical and materialistic world. And all of these things need to be treated at the material and physical level. And that even includes at the brain level. And this type of treatment and philosophical understanding, because that's what it is, it's truly philosophical. It's not an actual proven mechanism by which we operate. It is a framework by which we've decided to accept collectively. It's not been proven that everything is only existing at a material level, right? But since we have not been able to properly measure and evaluate consciousness, right, science has not been able to identify it, measure it, or truly say it's real. So we've entered into this era where science is now incapable of addressing our most basic needs and problems, our most prevalent problems and pressing problems. And now we're at a point where we need to reassess our understanding of the nature of reality, the lives that we're living, and what truly is the root cause of all of these problems. And all of our scientific research, we have over 6,000 science experiments. Every single one of them, I'm not talking about like a few hundred have shown incredible results. Every single one of those 6,000 experiments have shown unprecedented outcomes. We have not had one failed experiment. And then on top of that, over 670 peer-reviewed science publications, which is the gold standard for credible scientific research. We're also dealing with double-blinded protocols. We're also dealing with multiple different avenues of scientific research, life sciences, material science. We're treating crops. We're treating bacteria, microbes, right? Fungi, cells, things at the cellular and the atomic level. We're able to change the atom. We're dealing with non-living materials as well. Things that don't have psychology, that have absolutely no placebo effect, that you cannot persuade has an outcome, is still being altered when you change things at this fundamental level of consciousness.
Wow, that is mind blowing. You know, you're thinking about this, that there's so much to unpack here. Just what you said. I'm like, okay, I have a bunch of questions. Where do I go from here? Like the last statement that you're saying, that you're able to affect things that should not be affectable, or that should not be affected, but you're able to make those. Like that is incredible. It is incredible. Now, I just want to go back a little bit. I want to take a step back and ask you a question, because we have gone into this material world. That, without a doubt, you said this is a collective consciousness kind of choice that we've done. When do you think that happened, and why was that implemented? Because I believe it was, I think everything was by design. I think a lot of things are done by design and done on purpose. But when and why do you think that this was constructed to flip us? We'll say, to flip us.
Well, I could approach that from multiple different angles, but I think the most basic one that most people would accept is the division of science and religion. And that truly happened because, right, there are two qualities that science and religion both bring very fundamental truths to our life, and they both should work together. And unfortunately, because of their division, we are denying the fundamental truths of both, right, by accepting one or the other. Right. And so that unfortunately has left us, with like kind of these blinders on about reality and this biasy that exists with both scientists and those who are very religious and spiritual, right? Because now it's kind of like them versus us. And so what really happened is, a lot of scientists, they're pointing out these fundamental truths of reality. And the beautiful thing about science is, I like to say science is one drop in the ocean of life, right? And so when it forgets the context of the ocean it's in, then it's not able to properly give everything the proper context and address these problems. when it understands the context by which it operates, then it can function at its full capabilities. Right now, it's removed itself from the ocean and it's, identified itself as this tiny little droplet, this little material aspect of life, and it's denied the context by which that operates in. I like to give it like the comparison with have you ever played like a string instrument? It's very it's very interesting. If you ever played like the violin or the cello, I tried playing the cello for a short period of time. I'm not very good at it. But I tried playing it, and my teacher was saying that, when you're playing, you have to make sure that you're in tune properly, because you can be playing a scale and be completely in tune with your instrument, but not in tune with context of, say, if you're playing with an orchestra, where everybody's, following the objective truth, right? That objective tune, everybody's tuned in with that, but you're tuned in just with your own instrument. It can sound good by itself, but the moment you're in an orchestra, you can hear the discord, you can hear the dissonance between everything, right? That loses its harmony. So that's kind of what has happened with science. But we rely on science for so many things because it's given us so much. It's progressed life in so many ways. It's given us so many important things with our technology, our medicine, right? It's provided us with great advancements as a species, as a culture. So we see the immediate outcome of science and we see the comforts that it's provided us that religion has not been able to properly provide in the same way, nor at the same speed, we could say. And because religion started denying fundamental truths that science was able to provide, right? Science is saying, wait, hold on, right? The world is not the center of the universe, right? Or different disagreements. And so when you start denying these basic truths about life, you're going to have to understand that there will be a lack of objectivity. There will be bias. There will be basically a regression as an entity. You're going to start regressing. And that's what we've seen. We've seen a regression of religion. We've seen more people are leaving religion than ever before. We've seen that, the church I grew up in, it used to have overflow rooms for the amount of people that went in. And now we're lucky if we have 5 people, right? And so we're seeing a lot of people, but they still want to believe in something. Right. And so this is a very important fundamental thing, is that we've lost the context of God, right? And the context of consciousness, all for the sake of adopting what science has given us. And then without science and the purview of scientific, rapport, true outcome-based methods, true measurements, empirical data, we now leave this huge void with religion and spirituality that allows abusers, that allows scams and pseudoscience and people who can hurt you, who can just mislead you and misguide you. Just simple, huge misinformation that exists out there. And a lot of things that are available, they provide maybe very minimal outcomes, but the whole fact that this huge industry has been growing, and that's what we call the wellness industry, which, encompasses spirituality, biohacking, NLP, all these different things that exist with wellness, we see does not provide real, viable, huge solutions. But we can see that by the extensiveness in which it's growing, we have to understand that science is lacking some kind of answer. Right? Otherwise, why would we leave something that has been providing for us for so long, that's given us antibiotics, that's given us surgery, that's given us so many advancements, and now we're starting to leave it for the sake of pseudoscience? There must be something lacking. There must be something that we feel as a species, as a human, that is not being properly addressed within us, that makes us seek for answers elsewhere. And so, unfortunately, the wellness industry has taken advantage of that void to perfection. And now we see the crises that we see today with our mental health, with abusers, scams, all those things that exist. So what we're truly doing as an organization is we're bringing integrity back to spirituality, to religion, and as well as we're providing a scientific foundation for the existence of consciousness and maybe even for the existence of God.
Wow. I love this, and I agree with you with the wellness, the wellness side. It's kind of filling a void. And like you said, there's something missing and it's like taking advantage. Yeah, we're going to fill this void. And will sell you a bunch of these sessions, which don't really do much. Though sometimes they make you feel better, they don't really solve any issues. And I like that you're saying that you're taking spirituality, religion, and science too. So it's like this trifecta that you're marrying together. You're bringing this all together, which is fantastic. And especially, you said you had over, and correct me if I'm wrong, over 6,000 clinical trials or clinical studies?
6,000 science experiments. We have done a few clinical trials, though.
Okay. Let's go into what that is then. Let's dive into what we are looking at, what you are doing, and what you're doing that's making a difference as well.
True. Do you want to go into the clinical trials?
Let's do it. Yes.
All right. Well, to give context of the clinical trials, I like to explain what exactly it means when we're talking about consciousness. And what we do is basically we're infusing more consciousness. We're bringing more consciousness into whatever the recipient of the experiment is. And how we're validating the existence of consciousness, the existence of God, is we're measuring the outcome. We're measuring the effects. So because it's kind of like the wind. It's like you can't see the wind, you don't know it's there, but you know it exists. Nobody denies the wind isn't there, it's not real, because we see the effects of it. So if you can properly pin down and measure the effects, right, which is what science does, it needs empirical data, it needs something it can measure, it needs viscosity, width, length, weight. So what we're doing is we're providing those kinds of measurements to consciousness. And so that's how we can truly point out that consciousness is the factor that we're missing. When consciousness is elevated, or when consciousness is enhanced in human nature, right? That's when we see people who have greater mental clarity, greater peace of mind. We have greater vitality, greater well-being and happiness, right? There's a type of a feeling of motivation, inspiration, enthusiasm, and ambition in life. There's more harmony in relationships. People who are harmful or not good for you, they leave naturally. And the people that are good for you, it's like they just come to you, like they're magnetized to you. We see, people have better opportunities in life. I like to say God comes in the form of opportunity. And people, when they come from higher levels of consciousness, they have truly more opportunities in their businesses, their finances, in their choices. That's the thing. Consciousness provides freedom. When you're in a lower state of consciousness, you're enslaved to life. You're enslaved to circumstance. You are, just kind of like a victim, and life is throttling you here and there, and you have very little choice or ability to control or command your life. When you're in a higher state of consciousness, you have more choice available to you. You feel freer. There's a sense of freedom to the life that you have. There's greater joy in everything you do, right? There's a sense of satisfaction and completion and purpose in life again. So that's what happens when we see consciousness evolve with people. Now, I like to just go over what happens when we see consciousness evolve, for example, in agriculture. In agriculture, we see, crop yields increase. We see the nutrition in crops increase. We see crop yields increase by as much as 500%. We see shelf life double. We see the immunity in crops increase by as much as 600%. We see even the bacteria, like if you bless the crop or the seed, we see the composition of even the soil changes, the microbiology of the soil. We see the harmful bacteria decrease by as much as, I think it was 600%, and the beneficial bacteria increases by as much as 900%. We see chlorophyll levels change. We're able to alter the species of bacteria. We're able to create new materials and new species on this planet that only nature can do. Science has not been able to do that. Nature can do that. So this is a sign you're dealing with something at a higher level beyond whatever mankind has been able to accomplish and do. And we're able to do things like, make drug-resistant bacteria finally respond to drugs. We've seen that this energy, this consciousness, it has inherent intelligence, meaning you're not the one doing the creating per se, but rather this consciousness is working on your behalf. Because what we've seen when we're doing this with, let's say, we did an experiment on cancer cells at the California Pacific Medical Research Institute, right, with Dr. Garrett Yunt. And what we did is basically in a petri dish, there was a mixed sample of both cancer cells and non-cancerous cells. There's no treatment that is able to properly and effectively distinguish the nature between the two, kill one and give life to the other. This blessing, this consciousness can identify and distinguish between the two of them. It can kill cancer cells while at the same time promoting the viability and health of the non-cancerous cells. So this has intelligence. It knows how to treat each individual. And in real life experiments, right, where we've applied this to people, right, case studies, we have done this with over 300,000 people now have received these blessings, with significant outcomes. And we have many of their testimonials recorded. And they report things. Everybody receives something different. Everybody is treated differently, whether we know what the problem is or not. And that's what makes these clinical trials so significant, is that a lot of the clinical trials were done remotely. So 3 of them were conducted remotely, and we've also done double-blind clinical trials as well. So the 3 that were done remotely, which were also double-blinded, meaning that I, for example, in my clinical trial, was located in Florida at the time. And these participants from the clinical trial were all the way in India. I didn't know their name. I didn't know what their problems were. I didn't know anything about them. I had no idea who they were. And this is double-blinded, meaning even the investigators, even the researchers had no idea which group was receiving the blessing or not. So this completely eliminates, the role of placebo, the role of biases. We also have a placebo control group for people who think they're getting the blessing, so we can determine what's actual psychological effect versus the actual effect of the treatment.
I think that's very important to have that double blind with the placebo as well, because there is a group that is not receiving it because they are your control group, and then you can actually gauge how this is working, and it is working. So this is amazing. Yeah, so those who are listening, that's what a double blind placebo study is. Yes.
This is like the gold standard of clinical trials that researchers use to really tell if a treatment or drug is effective, to really eliminate all biases and all psychological placebo influence. So we're using the gold standard, using the most sophisticated technologies available. We're using, NIH toolbox, right? The NIH toolbox is a server that's, located in the United States with the NIH. So you have absolutely no ability to go inside and change any of the data within there. The moment the data is inputted, it's locked. You can't go back and edit it. And it changes. It's randomized. Everything changes per the participant. So you have no idea what question is going to be asked, what order the questions are going to come in. You have no idea what to expect. And we're measuring all the recipients, all the volunteers are going to be measured, right, in comparison with the different groups, with the placebo group and the control group and the treated group. And they're all taking measurements from day 0, which is the baseline before they receive the treatment or the placebo. And then they're being measured at 90 days and 180 days. And they're receiving the blessing twice. And all of this is done, of course, remotely with double-blind protocols. And one of the most significant outcomes, right, we have psychological assessments as well as the NIH toolbox for cognitive and motor function, which is a true indicator for significant changes in your cognition, your motor function. Those are the true indications of health and well-being, right, is your ability to when we're talking about cognition and motor function, we're talking language, memory, working memory, episodic memory, your executive function. We're talking about locomotion and balance, standing balance, your dexterity, your grip strength, your endurance. All of these are indicators of higher levels of well-being and higher cognitive functioning abilities. And so a lot of the clinical trials that have been conducted to test a new therapy or drug, they have not seen really significant improvements in the cognitive and motor function toolbox from the NIH, because most of the time that's used to tell if are any adverse effects from any drug or therapy, right? It's usually there to measure if there's any toxicity or any negative implications from the treatment. If there's enough negative implications, we weigh the pros and cons. We reject a drug from, being released to the market, to the masses. Our clinical trials are the first to test with over nearly 100% improvements in every single tested parameter from the NIH toolbox for cognition and motor function. that shows you just what fundamental piece is being able to affect you at a complete integrative level, at mind, body, health, well-being, at absolutely every level. And these results are also reflected in the psychological analyses, where we're dealing with people who have severe mental and emotional health problems. So those are all the people we're taking for the clinical trial. People who have severe problems that, maybe they've tried things, but they have no resolution, severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, just mental fatigue. We're dealing with people who have ADD, ADHD, basically a whole host of problems. Incredible fatigue. With women, we're dealing with women who have menstrual cycle disorders, things related to issues with their menstrual health, with menopause, things like that. And we're taking those and, doing the same measurements at 0, baseline, day 90, and day 180, and doing psychological assessments from a third party, clinical psychologist. And what we've found in the reports is that everything that they had an issue with before has essentially been 100% resolved by the end of our clinical trial. The depression, gone. Anxiety, gone. ADD, ADHD, mental fogginess, lack of clarity in life, lack of direction. We're even dealing with people of bad relationships. They've reported horrible relationships, issues with their husband or their spouse, issues in their family. Suddenly they feel either they don't care anymore, they're unbothered by it. Now they're operating with a new level of confidence and new level of just peace and well-being in life, or those people suddenly start treating them better, right? These are real reports that people are giving us. They're being treated better. They feel better. They feel happier. They're more confident, right? And we're seeing people, whoever is the breadwinner of the family in India, a lot of the time it's the men, but whoever is the one that's earning the income, we've seen their income triple in many cases, right? Things that you would not expect any outcomes in, we've seen significant, unprecedented outcomes. And I would also like to go over, we've also done clinical trial measuring blood parameters. So over 100 parameters in blood. We're talking about things that cannot be influenced by psychology or placebo. And we're also talking about things that even with the best treatments available to us today have not been able to significantly improve to the degree that we have seen in our clinical trials. So we're talking things like increase in vitamin D3 by like 230% without, any change in lifestyle, really. We're talking about acetylcholine, right? It's a neurotransmitter, increased by 43%, and norepinephrine by 103%. Dopamine increased by 422%. We're seeing improvements in insulin sensitivity by 88%. Right? We're also seeing clotho increase. Now, clotho is very significant because the greatest treatments and drugs and things we have available to us has not been able to even show more than marginal improvements in the clotho protein. And what the clotho protein is, it's a protein that really is indicative of your reversal in aging or the longevity of your life. It is basically the anti-aging protein. The more clotho you have, basically we could say the greater longevity or quality of life you might have. And nobody's been able to influence it more than marginally. And we've seen 685% increase in the clotho protein. That's far beyond typical anti-aging results by the best treatments out there. We've seen, oxytocin increase by over 412%. And that's rare outside of just directly administering oxytocin, right? Directly intravenously, right? And we've seen 412% just by the waving of your hands.
Okay, so I have some questions here now. Of course, so I'm like lost for words here. So these are what you're doing, you're saying, is blessings. Okay, so is it like I don't want to say like an energy kind of healing thing, but what exactly is it? Like, how exactly do you go about to give these blessings?
So a blessing, right? It's not, like a priest or somebody, doing a blessing. What I'd like to clarify is when we're talking about blessings, we're talking about somebody, meaning the person who's able to bless is somebody who's able to evolve their consciousness, which I like to say everybody's capable of being able to do that. I like to clarify that this is not something that's unique for one or two people. This is something that everybody is capable of. Enlightenment is available for everybody. But it's somebody who's evolved their consciousness to the point where they reached high enough levels of consciousness that their consciousness now has risen above the consciousness of nature. Now, what that means is the nature of consciousness, right? That's the basically the physical laws of nature we see today. It's, it's gravity. It's what tells, that if you drop an apple, it's going to fall down. It's not going to start miraculously floating up into the sky, right? We're talking about, water flows downhill and never uphill. We're talking about, your own body lives within a certain set of parameters that the moment you exceed or go below those parameters, right, you die or you go into a coma, right? Your body temperature should not exceed a certain level. Otherwise you could die, right? That's determined by the consciousness of nature. Nature has consciousness that controls and regulates all of life that is encompassed by nature. And so that consciousness of nature, we cannot go beyond it. Science has not been able to exceed it. That's why those natural laws exist. We call them the laws of physics, right? Inertia, all those different things are the laws of physics that science has not been able to alter, right? Within our gravitational sphere, within our nature of consciousness. Now, when you evolve enough, you can exceed the consciousness of nature. You can go beyond it. And basically what happens, we call that enlightenment. What enlightenment is, it simply means that you are now an extension or you are now connected to, we can say, a higher consciousness. That's when we go into the nature of perhaps a creator, God, the divine, right? Something out there that has created nature. Something that is, if created nature, surely can change it and alter it. And the true way to measure, if this is coming from the creator, from that level of consciousness, from enlightenment, is you can have an effect on the laws of nature. You can alter them. You can create new species, new materials. You can alter the atom. You can do things that science says are impossible, and suddenly they become possible. And we've seen that. We've altered the laws of physics in in many of our experiments. We've done over 4,000 experiments in non-living materials. And we've consistently, repeatably been able to alter the laws of physics. We've been able to create new materials. We've been able to change physical constants. We've changed the atom. We've made it bigger. We've made it smaller. We've increased the energy between atoms, the distance between atoms. We've been able to change things, the crystallite structure, isotopic abundance, right? The physical constants is what essentially maps out that periodic table of elements. Right. There are certain, molecular compositions that atoms form that determines what a material is. And those given materials have certain physical constants. Water will never boil at any temperature. It'll boil at a very specific temperature, right? Same thing. There's a specific melting point, freezing point. All these things have set parameters that they operate within unless you apply an external energy, right? If you apply something different, if you add salt to water or something like that. But there's nothing that just by wishing it to change will change. Okay? We've been able to change this through these divine blessings.
Okay.
Essentially wishing it to change.
So we weren't able to, but now you can. Okay. So
now you can.
Let's hear about this. Yes.
So a blessing, right, is coming from that enlightened consciousness, somebody who is connected to God, we could say, 100% connected. And from that state, they're able to intend. We call it working through their thought intention, that through their intention to make something change, to infuse more consciousness into the recipient, whatever that recipient may be. Or we could say more of the grace of God, like whatever terminology you want to use, more consciousness or more of the grace of God. And what happens is it's like for a person, for example, all we're doing is we're strengthening your connection to the God of your understanding. And all of the results, all of the benefits, everything you get through that blessing is essentially coming directly from God to you. It's your own divine connection. That's why we call our organization Divine Connection International, because all we're doing is strengthening your connection and you're getting it directly from God.
Wow. Okay. I think I understand. So it's kind of like you're creating a more solid connection to God is what you're doing. You're kind of like reestablishing that connection that maybe was severed or was reduced due to our materialistic type of world that we live in, and which is flipped. It's kind of like it's an inverse of what it should be. So you're reestablishing that connection then.
Yeah, we're kind of like a jumper cable, you could say.
Okay. Providing that highway back. Yeah. Reinvigorating,
We're
restarting
getting
them.
started again.
Okay. And so,
Right. And I guess another way, sorry to interrupt.
no.
Another way of looking at it too is this is one of the fundamental things that we're missing in science as well as religion, right? Is science, Max Planck, when he said consciousness is fundamental, the part he was missing from that statement was the context of God. That is how God operates within our physical reality, is through the nature of consciousness. And that's what religion is missing. Religion accepts God, but forgets the way that God interacts with humankind, with the nature of reality, is through this consciousness. That is God's action within the world. That is how God interacts with our world, is through consciousness. So you can say when we're infusing more consciousness into someone, it's basically there's more of that divine presence there, that there's more of that divine presence with you operating. And basically, like, I guess in that context, you could really say you are co-creating reality. You have more of God flowing through you, working with you, alongside you to bring you happiness, because that's what God wants more than anything. God wants for you to be happy. God wants the things that will truly bring you happiness. God is that intelligent force that knows what you need, your requirements in your life for your greatest well-being, for your greatest happiness, your greatest joy. All of those are reflections of higher levels of consciousness, which we can say more of the grace of God in our lives.
Okay. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I do agree, like God presents us, when you said like God is kind of opportunity, that's how he speaks to us. He provides these opportunities. And in the end, God has provided us with free will. So it is our choice to actually take those opportunities. So there's opportunities presented to us countless times. And it's just a matter of, do we take the easy temptation to go do something else? Or do we take the opportunity to further and better ourselves or make a stronger bond, a stronger connection with God, which is amazing. Now, you had said, so you've done 6,000 clinical trials, but now you have some peer-reviewed papers.
Well, not clinical trials, just
oh my gosh, yes.
I want to be transparent. Not 6,000 clinical trials. We have done about 4 clinical trials.
Okay, yes. My mistake. I'm like stuck on that. I think I said that previously as well.
It sounds good.
Yes.
Though. Thank you.
it can happen. It can. It will happen. Right.
Right.
Now. So, of course, when and I know this is not that type of medicines that they're saying, but there's always side effects. They're always like, oh, there's always side effects. Have you noticed any side effects? Like, we'll say negative side effects, and which I don't think
if you call happiness a side effect, maybe.
Okay, to some people, yes. No. Some people they like to be grumpy and they like to complain. But so if it sounds like there's no real side effects to this, and you have followed the people for, you said 180 days, which is close to pretty much 6 months. Have you done any further investigations, like more, much longer, to see if any of these are lasting, or do they have to continue up with some sort of regiment or conscious behavior to keep this established?
Well, for the clinical trials, we stopped at 180 days, right? Because it costs lots of money to do clinical trials.
Of course,
yeah. Millions of dollars over the last, I'd say, 2 decades doing this scientific research. So, but even 6 months is a significant amount of time to see that kind of data, and especially continue for 6 months. Where a lot of people, especially in the wellness industry, they usually measure for maybe like a month or a few weeks. And then they give these grand claims about what their, treatments and things are available or capable of doing. And they cherry pick data. So that's why a lot of scientists don't trust the wellness industry and spiritual leaders, because they cherry pick. There's a lot of bias. There's a lot of pseudoscience and psychological data that proves nothing. So it's been very unfortunate that now spirituality and religion is not taken very seriously as well as a result of that, which is unfortunate. But what I like to say is what really confirms the longevity of these divine blessings is, first of all, when we're dealing with not people, because people, that's another category in itself. When we're dealing with animals per se, or when we're dealing with non-living materials, when we're dealing with agriculture, we've seen changes that continue, right, even years later, right? We're seeing the same outcome continue for years after just one blessing, right? So this change is permanent depending on the recipient. Now, what we've seen is with the people who come to us and receive these blessings, this is how I can say the longevity with human life is because we have a lot of case studies. Basically, a lot of people or the testimonials that have been with us since literally maybe 2011 and 12, right? That's when they really came to us. And the same people that came to us then are still with us because for them, this has given them life. This is something different entirely. And I'll give one example of one of these case studies, and it's my personal assistant. If she's okay with me telling her story, she gives me a thumbs up. So I like to say she's overqualified to be a personal assistant because her background, she's a lawyer, right? She's a CPA, right? She has all these qualifications. She's worked at Deloitte and, huge, institutions. She graduated for Northwestern University. Shows she's very overqualified to be a personal assistant. But because of her testimonial, because her life changed completely the moment she got her first blessing, that's why she, left everything. And for a while, she volunteered for free, right? She just wanted to be close and to get this energy. And then, we're like, why don't you work for us? And so, but she left everything behind because she's suffering from this huge autoimmune disorder called, do you know Crohn's disease?
Yes, correct.
Right. So she has Crohn's disease as well as oscillating spondylitis. Ankylosing. Okay, let's retake. She has two autoimmune conditions. One of them is Crohn's disease, and the other one is
a rare form of arthritis of the spine.
Okay, a rare form of arthritis of the spine.
There we
That's
go.
a great
there
way
we
to
go.
say
Yes.
And basically, it causes the spinal cord to fuse, right? And as well as she had such severe Crohn's disease that she was literally in and out of the hospital constantly in excruciating pain. I think she's went through probably hundreds of surgeries throughout her life just to treat her Crohn's disease. I can't tell you how many, but lots of. And she had a very limited diet, right? She could only eat like a few, like 5 different types of foods out of everything. She had a very limited diet because of how bad it was. She was on the very severe side of the spectrum of Crohn's disease. And it got so bad that when she was around 19 years of age, she actually had her colon removed because it was either that or she die. And so the doctors were like, this has to be removed. That's the only way she's going to survive. And so they removed her colon and she lived, a very excruciating life even after that, in and out of the hospital, infections, constant infections. And none of the drugs that she was taking were helping her, right? All the drugs that you take for Crohn's disease and for her arthritis, those types of things, they had literally no effect on her. And then as well as that, you're taking these drugs and you have all this toxicity and all these things that build up over time just from taking these really heavy duty drugs to treat those disorders. And also on top of that, I don't know if you know, but a huge amount of serotonin is produced in the gut. So the moment she had that colon removed and with that gut imbalance, she has huge anxiety and depression and huge ADD, ADHD, mental restlessness, suicidal tendencies, things like that, a really severe side of the spectrum of everything. She didn't think there was anything worth living. She didn't think life had purpose or life was worth living. And so she literally came here, got a blessing, and she has never been in the hospital since. She met us in 2019, got her first blessing then. She's able to eat everything. On top of that, beforehand, when she had her colon removed, she's going to the bathroom like maybe 30 times a day. Now she's going to the bathroom, right? If she has to travel or something, maybe at most 4 or 5 times a day, at most. She's able to eat everything, things she couldn't eat before. I think there's only like 2 things she can't eat now. Out of that, she's able to eat everything without any issues, any GI symptoms, nothing like that. Her quality of life has improved significantly. She has basically asymptomatic in terms of her arthritis. She has very minimal to almost no pain most of the time, right? Her life has completely transformed 180 degrees. She said she's happy. She feels life is worth living. She has mental peace, her cognitive abilities, her strength. She wasn't able to lift like more than 20 pounds before. Now she's lifting like 70-pound suitcases, right? She's doing things that are unheard of. You only regress when you go into this, these disorders. Truly, the options that are out there, it's really, truly either maintaining or preventing further regression or worse regression. And she's rejuvenated. Her life is entirely different now. And she does get continuous blessings, but at the same time, she's never gone back to day 0 before she met us. She's never gone back to day 0. And that's why people stay with us too, is because they experience life here and they know that is life. That is what you're meant to live as. You're not meant to suffer or struggle unproductively in life. You're not meant to suffer with these huge amount of mental health problems. You're not meant to live with anxiety. You're not meant to live with depression. Depression is a sign something's wrong. It's not the normal status quo. And so, right, these people who stay, it's like you can't leave your house without your cell phone. In the same way, they can't live their day-to-day lives without these blessings. That's how strongly they feel about this.
And I was going to ask you, I was going to say, have you stumbled upon or have you had any, have you seen something that was like unexplainable or one of the strangest things that you've ever witnessed at work, like with your work? But I'm assuming your personal assistant is that example of that.
She's one of many. I'd like to say that. She's not an outlier and she's not an extreme case. She's actually one of many.
Fantastic. Okay.
So I've seen significant, and some people, all they need is peace.
Yeah.
All they need is happiness. They don't even need anything. Maybe they don't have any physical problem at all. Maybe they just want to live a better quality of life. There's no treatment or thing out there that can, potentize your life. We have a lot of things that treat breakdown or maintain your life as it is, but nothing can take your life from here to there.
I agree with you. Unless there's, well, I'm not saying unless. A lot of people will take medication to try to bring themselves to that spot, but it's either only temporarily or with some severe side effects, or they just numbing everything, which is not good at all. So I do have another question here when was the moment that you realized that this is a lot bigger than you thought it was? Like, when did you discover that, okay, this is something big here?
The moment I met my husband.
Fair enough. Okay.
I grew up. Oh God, every day. Okay. Here's the thing, I live this every day of my life. So it's always, after a while, you're kind of like, I guess you could say I expect it now because of how frequently these things happen. But at the same time, every time it happens, it just brings a new level of awe as to what God can do and what God wants for us. You get me crying just saying that, but it's true. It's what God wants for us. So
I agree. Instead of us suffering, like I said, we are given free will, free choice, and he is providing those opportunities. He wants us to take those opportunities, but it's our choice. Yes. And a lot of times I think we are so distracted. So we just want the easy out sometimes, or we just talk ourselves out of things too often that we don't do that. Okay. And I have another question, something that has been coming up previously in some of my other shows is schizophrenia. Have you dealt with anybody who is suffering from schizophrenia? And if so, how did that go?
We haven't had a lot of cases with schizophrenia, so I'm just being honest with that. So great. I can't say too much about that simply because we don't have a lot of science and we haven't done studies specifically on it. So I don't want to make any claims, but I will say just on a personal note, outside of our scientific research, is my uncle. He actually has schizophrenia. And what I've seen, it's really funny. he's towards end of life. He's very old and he's towards the end of his life. But what has really been significant is he's received blessings from, my husband, my guru, uh, even years ago. And he brought him out from, being basically bedridden in a hospital. And he brought him into hospice to the point in which now he no longer even needs oxygen. Like he was bound to a wheelchair and needed oxygen when he first entered hospice. And now he's not even wearing oxygen. And we're wondering if he even needs hospice. They keep taking him off and on hospice over and over again. But he's, of that age. And so, but what I have seen with him is I've seen his connection, because with the schizophrenia, right, they're experiencing things that, it's kind of hard for you to kind of relate to or connect with.
Yes, correct.
But he seems to be having more ability to connect with other people, right? He's actually socializing more with the other people that he's around. He's spending more time present with other people. And another thing is I've seen him and he seems to be more at peace. He's always had a strong connection with Jesus and with God. But I feel over the years, especially towards these last few years, I've seen this kind of love grow and deepen even more so. And he used to just sit and watch television all the time. And he doesn't seem to even want the television on. He just is happy being at peace. He's just will sit even, by himself and just be content. And he's pleased and he's taking walks in nature and he just seems to be living a better quality of life. So, I can't truly vouch for him, but that's just what I've witnessed from my side, my personal story.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate your honesty as well with that, because sometimes you don't get that very often, especially when you're talking about anything type of healing or medical. People want to make claims that they don't have any data for, though you said you do with your uncle, which is fantastic to hear. Yeah, I often wonder. Well, I've interviewed a psychotherapist about schizophrenia as well, and there's a lot of talk that it is a very spiritual, dark battle, much more than a mental illness. That there is some sort of spiritual things going on, or something, an outside darkness that is affecting these people. And I'm wondering if this reconnection, this reestablishment, is diminishing. And it's not to say that these people are evil. Unfortunately, it's almost as if they've been targeted. And they have like some sort of targeting on them where they're being affected by this. But perhaps this reestablishment to God through this method is strengthening and reducing that connection to the schizophrenia on this other side.
Or maybe they're just more sensitive in a world that doesn't allow it anymore.
Yeah, it could be exactly that. I agree too. Yeah. That is. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. Go on.
No. I was just saying that, like, I've also interviewed these people that are called targeted individuals, and it's a close tie-in with schizophrenia as well. And I believe that they have this connection, and in a world that just doesn't really either believe it, want it to happen, and science says it doesn't exist. They try to talk it away and just say, oh, it's a mental disorder, when in fact there's enough credible evidence to say that something is happening to these people, and it's scary. And I'm hoping maybe that they find a solution. Perhaps this as well, this divine connection, can be it.
Right, I think so. I think at the very least it can help us understand and provide us with more compassion and provide more peace for those suffering.
I agree completely. Well, Dahryn, I think we're getting close to wrapping this up here. I want to say thank you so much for spending the time and telling us all about this. One last time, I'd love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, and also for that code, the access to this to the discount as well.
Of course. So everything is available on our website, divineconnection.org. All of our studies, our science experiments, they're all available to the public. So we're completely transparent. I truly feel that, being transparent and truthful, it's our responsibility as being both involved in science and spirituality. I feel like it's necessary, especially in this day and age when there's so much inauthenticity, right? We like to be fully transparent. That's why I'll admit if there's something that we haven't done and we haven't tested on him, I'm ready to share that with all of you. But I truly firmly believe from my experience, from everybody I've witnessed, that this has something real that science can no longer ignore, and that is touching parts of our lives that, might probably touch yours as well. So I strongly encourage all of you, please, visit our website, read more, join our mailing list, visit our social media. I have my own social media, Dahryn Trivedi. But you can also, please, we have that landing page for all of you. If you want to really just try it out for the first time, just see how you feel. We're offering a huge discount. All of the money, of course, will go to support these podcasts, and will also go to support our organization, our nonprofit, and our mission to bring about this science and to help evolve and grow our mission. So that's really what all the money is going towards. But if you sign up for the blessings, there's a huge discount for you. If you want to try it for the first time, divineconnection.org/Codega. And just try it out. 2 blessings from either myself or my husband, who's my guru, the founder of this amazing mission that I'm so privileged to be a part of. So,
wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much, Rye. I've enjoyed talking to you greatly.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. That was Dahryn Trivedi, which was a very interesting conversation. There was a lot of talk about consciousness, a lot about consciousness is our creator, is our creation and our consciousness connection to God. And we start to realize when we start reestablishing that and making that connection that much stronger, that it elevates us, it fixes us, I don't want to say cure us, but we'll say treats us, because I'm not a doctor, I can't say that. But it definitely, with all like the studies they've done, not clinical trials, I don't want to say that, not 6,000 clinical trials, I kept on messing up and saying that, but it's really great. And the transparency that they have, you can find everything on their website to take a look at it. I highly suggest it. I went through it. It's great. So that's something I think everyone should take advantage of. We are the creators. Our awareness, our consciousness is our creation. We are the creators of our reality. So are you going to create, or are you going to be distracted watching TV? That's definitely up to you. And until next time, keep your curiosity wandering, keep the light lit, and always find your way home.
Beneath the stars where shadows grow, the Nephilim's echoes whisper low. Bigfoot roams through the forest deep, and Dogman prowls where the brave won't sleep. Across lost history we wonder why, seeking the truth that time tried to hide. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the code gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. UFOs streak through the velvet skies, aliens watch with unblinking eyes. The paranormal hums where silence breaks, in the void of secrets a lantern wakes. Through hidden realms and stories untold, the code gas flame is a light to hold. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit, through the darkness don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come, and always find your way back home. Let Legends rise from the Earth's deep core, a lost legacy we can't ignore. With every step, the veil grows thin, revealing worlds where the strange begins. Keep your curiosities wandering and the light lit. Through the darkness, don't ever quit. In the codex, the mysteries come and always find your way back.